So this is going to be a little curious in terms of the way it's put, really, because it's about thinking and thought. And when you do something like that, you're going to be doing a lot of thinking about thinking and saying what you think about thought. So it sounds a bit like a comedy sketch. Here's an awful lot of thinking about thinking that I thought that thinking ought to think, thought, think. And it's going to get a little confusing, I would have thought. But I was thinking about thinking and what thinking actually is. When you sit and think about thinking, in the same way that you think of Rodin's thinker, that you sit there and you do this. And it feels like thinking's going on here, and that would be reasonable. And of course, that's been a conception of things, is that thought and thinking occurs in the brain, and that's left an awful lot of people looking for the mechanism of thinking inside the head. And so you've got some really, really curious sort of ideas about how thinking takes place and what thought actually is. Now, to my mind, thinking is actually an action. It's a process that an organ does. Now, if something's an action, then it can't really take place in its essence within the organ of the action. So to me, thinking doesn't actually happen in the brain, it happens through the brain. That's why when I think of an elephant, my head doesn't explode, because there is no elephant in my head. It's something else. So let's go to this idea of walking. What is walking? Well, walking is a translocation of the body through three-dimensional space from one point to another point. And it's quite easy to think how we do it. We use our legs. We get off the sofa, use our legs, and walk through the space to the kitchen to make a cup of coffee, something like that. So if I said to you, what's walking? You'd have no problem at all. Walking is an action that occurs in the space outside of the body, but needs the legs in order to do it. Now, translocation in space doesn't need the legs, but the action of walking needs the legs. So what we can say is that the legs are the organ of walking, and that walking occurs as a translocation outside to the body in space. Now, my conception of thinking is something similar, in that thinking doesn't occur in the head, in the brain. It occurs because you have a brain, it occurs through the brain. The brain is the organ of thought. But thought itself occurs as an interaction between the organism and the environment in which it finds itself. Now, this obviously goes alongside with the stuff that I was burbling on about on genes and on creativity, and it's all part of this general philosophy that I have about how the organism, the thinking thing, us, behaves in relation to the environment in which we find ourselves. So things like thought, thinking, intelligence, creativity, they're all essentially the same thing, and that is the interaction of the organism with the environment. And again, thinking occurs outside of the head. It doesn't occur in the head, it occurs outside of the head, because that organ of thought, the brain, is in relation with the environment, and it's through the brain that thinking occurs, not in the brain. So anyway, I know this is a short one, but that was just me thinking about thinking. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching.